Hello everyone, this is Joshua Smith of Apollo's Artifacts. It is 2018. This will be the third component in a series that I've been doing on controversial, perhaps even hoaxed or forged documents that often make the rounds in conspiracy theory circles. In case you haven't listened to the other two, I will link both of those below and offer a bit of a summation of those before we get into this, and I clear up some desideratum before I jump into the overall primary document here, which is often referred to as the NASA war document. So first of all, I have to say that when you're approaching things like this in a historical fashion, the way that I am, there are other notorious historical frauds or forged documents that have made their way down through time. And the importance of those documents isn't so much the fact that they're faked or forged, but sometimes it is actually the real-world impact that they have had. Some have had indeed very pernicious effects over time. Two of the most prominent ones that everyone should know about, especially people who are going through history programs at university, you most certainly should not graduate with a BA without knowing about these two. The first would be the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, which of course most people know at least a little bit about and the negative effects it has had. I'm not going to go into that one for those reasons. The other one is known as the Donation of Constantine. Most scholars conclude that the Donation of Constantine was put together sometime in the 700s, and it was a document that was purported to reveal that Constantine himself had handed over papal authority to the Roman Church for the western portion of the Roman Empire. This is critical, of course, to the division between the Byzantine Empire and the Western Roman Empire. The way that the document was interpreted or seen by the public at large went back and forth for many centuries, sometimes being seen as an authentic document, other times being decried as a fake. One of the most famous people who helped to expose it was Nicholas of Cusa, or Nicholas Cusanus, and actually he wrote a book that I did a report on when I was at university called Idiota de Mente, and you should check that out. It's actually very interesting reading. But the important thing to keep in mind is that there's a difference between whether or not a document was faked or hoaxed or a fraud or whatever else, and the actual real-world effects of said document. So the first one that I looked at was called Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. It was supposedly composed in 1979, first discovered by an outsider in 1986. This document was said to be a celebration document that was put together in 79 to memorialize the 25th anniversary of the beginning of World War III, which is where supposedly the Bilderberg Group or the Illuminati had declared war on, I guess, the public at large around the world. And it came to widespread prominence in 1991 with the publication of William Milton Cooper, or Bill Cooper's Behold a Pale Horse, which was an underground conspiracy bestseller for many years, and you can still find it today. I will link that one below if you want to see that. There's also an interesting documentary made about Bill's life that I'll link below. I think it's just called The Hour of Our Time, which was the name of his radio show that he ran for many years. The second one that I looked at was called The Report from Iron Mountain. This was initially published in 1967. It was during the heated times of the Vietnam War. It was post-Gulf of Tonkin. It was post-Dr. Strangelove. And this is part of what led me to conclude that both documents indeed are fakes. They are hoaxes. They are frauds. However, that does not mean that aspects of these have not since gone operational, which I pointed out when I was covering the report from Iron Mountain. And as different as the first two documents were from each other, this third document is very much different from either of those. So the first one I do not think was written in a particularly competent fashion at all. Certainly not compared to the report from Iron Mountain, which was obviously done by the hands of a skilled and artful writer. The last one, the NASA war document, which is actually titled the Future Strategic Issues, Future Warfare Circa 2025, is basically just a PowerPoint slide of a presentation which we do not actually have access to so far as I know. And this one was put together by a Dennis Bushnell, the chief scientist of the NASA Langley Research Center. This final document is 113 pages altogether. However, I've been able to excise 32 of those pages as redundancies. They're sort of extraneous and repetitive material that we can get out of the way so that we don't have to have too much of the same thing being said over and over. Now, one of the things I find so interesting about all three documents is that there are particular unifying themes that run throughout them all. A lot of people in the conspiracy circles will link these documents to something called Alternative 3, which was a program which was shown in the UK in 1977. It was supposedly an April Fool's Day joke that actually did not run on April the 1st. It ran in June or July or something like that of that year. You can actually watch that one online also. I can link that below. But one of the things it mentioned was a concept of a brain drain, where intelligent, accomplished people from around the world are being shipped off of Earth in order to form a Moon and Mars colony. And some people have connected this to something that is called the alchemical revelation of the method, that the so-called shadowy controllers, Illuminati, whoever it is, the Bilderbergers, the New World Order that are supposedly behind things, must first tell people the things that they're up to before it actually takes place. A few more things that jump out to me about this document before I jump into it is that I noticed that it doesn't have any kind of counters to, say, natural disaster events. There's no plans for what to do in light of something like that taking place. Also, it completely seems to ignore domestic issues. It takes no note of migration-related issues or anything like that, which is kind of odd, I would say, since this document purports to be primarily a defensive-minded document. I would say, too, this document represents sort of the ultimate in asymmetric warfare thinking, and it's vastly different than the other two documents, although there are, as I mentioned before, a few unifying themes. However, dystopian does not even come close to touching the nightmarish hellscape that lies within this document that Dr. Bushnell has foreseen that the, say, outside enemies of the United States could launch on the United States. And that is different from the position taken by most of the conspiracy theorists who say that, well, these are the plans that the elite have for the people who live here, that they want to bring these things about and they want to attack the people with these bioweapons or silent weapons or whatever else it is. But Dr. Bushnell never says that in the document at all. He claims that all of this is about trying to prepare the armed forces for threats that will indeed be coming about at different points in the future. So in order to clear up any confusion that may have been left over from the previous episode, the one that I did on the report from Iron Mountain, I'd like to emphasize that what I want to do is help people in how to think about these documents, but I do not want to tell anyone what it is that they must think about the documents. In fact, if you want to view it in a conspiratorial fashion, that's totally fine with me. Doesn't matter. I'm actually a fan of conspiracism and conspiracy theories. I've been reading them for 30 years. I find them very interesting. However, the ones I do not like are the ones that are anti-Semitic or obsessed with racial issues and all of that. Those are really distasteful. And I fully realize that there are people out there who do, for whatever reason, think that the Jews are behind everything, or that Israel is behind everything, or Mossad is behind everything. But also, a lot of these people are just shills and dupes. There's a lot of people who were, I think, put up by the SPLC to do this. I think there's a lot of government secret ops programs that are going on to put comments like that in forums and in comment sections that talk about that sort of stuff just to stir up strife where really the strife should not be. But when I approach this kind of stuff, it's I do it in a way like the old Warner Brothers and Disney cartoons where they would have an angel on one side and a devil on the other saying, you know, do this or don't do this or whatever, except in this I have like Michael Shermer on one side saying, don't believe anything at all, you know, unless it's officially sanctioned. And on the other side I have Eddie Bravo saying, you got to believe it all, man. Everything's a conspiracy, right? The earth is flat. We didn't go to the moon, you know. Vaccines are out to kill us all. And I sort of let them battle it out, but my touchstone is always common sense. That's what I always want to come back to. But okay, so as we get into it, this first came out in July of 2001. I think that's really, really important to keep in mind. And the three documents have these unifying themes among them. They make an attempt to be comprehensive. I actually think they attempt to be overly comprehensive, which is very strange. They exhibit an interest in far-out technology, which I like to refer to as over-the-horizon technology. There's an obsession in these documents with environmental catastrophism, population catastrophism, the possibility of poisoning the water and food supplies. There's connections to think tanks. There's interest in eugenics and population control measures. And also usually something comes up in them about keeping the public dumbed down and distracted with inconsequential nonsense and whatnot. And I'm actually going to begin at the end on his page 113, where he anticipates the usual reactions to his presentation. And he says here, there will be not being done yet by anyone, therefore these things will not be done. Or no one would actually do these things. Or we have to hope that they would not do these things. Or why go there? We cannot defend against it. And finally, some disbelief, but agreement that there's too much here to be disregarded. So he begins by pointing out that his focus are on the capabilities of the enemy after next. He points out that there's an ongoing worldwide technological revolution. There are economic trends in this direction and potential nature of farther term warfare. He begins in the first section. The bots, Borgs, and humans welcome you to 2025 AD. This presentation is based on futures work for and with the USAF 2025, National Research Council, the Army, Australian DoD, the NRO, DARPA, DIA, CIA, ONI, FBI, SOCOM, and Army TRADOC, just for a sampling of them anyway. And also, I was able to find a separate document, a 2025 document that was related to the augmentation of troops in the field that was put out by Army TRADOC. Dr. Bushnell says this presentation is meant to incite thought and discussion, is based in all cases upon existing data, trends, analyses, technologies, no pixie dust, by which he means no fantastical nonsense. Utilization, application of 2025 plus projections, inputs to future warfighting concepts and developments, enemy after next, and blue. Inputs to new procurement decision, 15 plus years to produce these weapons, 40 plus years to inventory or store these weapons. Heads up for the intel community. These are watches and warnings of what could be coming down the road. Inputs to DoD for research and development planning. Going in assumptions. Politics can and does change overnight. Potential capabilities is the future warfare issue, not who, but what, in terms of technology. However, what he seems to ignore, from what I noticed already and mentioned earlier, are internal political changes here in the United States. He talks about changes in other places such as Russia, Iran, etc., etc. Need to plan, quote, differently. The world is in the throes of triple exponential IT, bio, nanotechnological revolutions, changes occurring at scales of months instead of decades. Zeroth order potential effects upon defense, offense equipment, ConOps threat. And Zeroth means it precedes the first or first order, and ConOps stands for concept of operations. And then he moves on to what he calls Spaceship Earth. And in this section, you'll see the obsessions I talked about before with limited resources, climate change, the population bomb, and population control. He says the crew are plundering the ship's supplies, tinkering with the temperature and life support controls, still looking for the instruction manual, engaging in bloody skirmishes in every corner of the vessel, increasing the size of the crew by 2 million per week. Humans have taken over and vastly shortened evolution itself of the planet. Global warming, pollution, deforestation, huge public works are being done, such as Three Gorges Dam. Of the human species itself, genomic design and repair, mind children, or Moravec, which is a high-level AI, is easier to replicate than low-level AI, such as things that took millions of years to evolve. Products and life forms, cross-species molecular breeding, directed evolution, Maxigen, which is a DNA shuffling pharmaceutical. Next page it says currently, order, and that was of course 2001, order of 70% of the world's research conducted outside of the U.S. To first order a percent of GDP, U.S. produces an order of 18% of the world's GDP. Order of 70% of U.S. research now commercial as opposed to government sponsored, by which he is indicating that it is outside of the control parameters that he would like. Nanotechnology research, 29% is being done in Europe, 28% in Japan, 27% in the US, and 16% in others. And of course, the next great breakthrough could always come from that 16%. No one knows. Technological ages of humankind, hunter-killer groups, 1 million BC to 10,000 BC. I'm not sure where he gets his anthropology with the million BC part, but I guess that is what it is. Agriculture, 10K BC to 1800 AD. Industrial, 1800 to 1950. IT, 1950 to 2020. Then the bio-nano he foresees as being 2020 and beyond with a question mark. And then the virtual, which he has left as undated and unknown altogether. The hunter-gatherer stage, he has things are provided by nature. Agriculture, we exercise control over nature, plants and animals. Industrial, we mechanize agriculture. Then with IT, bio, nano, you begin to automate industry and agriculture. And then with virtual, you have total roboticization of IT, bio, nano, industry, and agriculture all combined. Key future technologies, all highly synergistic at the frontiers of the small in a feeding frenzy off of each other. He separates this into IT. Silicon, bio, optical, quantum, nanocomputing, no end in sight. Another 10 to the 6th power of change is coming. Virtual reality, holographic, immersive, ubiquitous comms, hyperspectral sensors, virtual presence, automatic, robotic, everything. Huge cost reductions will follow from this. In bio, he has lifespan will be doubling, genetic engineering before birth, plants irrigated by seawater, food, petrochem, feedstock, minerals, and terraforming will begin to take place. Nano, carbon nanotubes, 600 times the strength to weight of steel, assemblers in living factories. Huge cost reductions will follow this also. A worldwide IT revolution will take place. Comms, computing, sensors, electronics. U.S. commercial IT R&D, $100 billion per year. A factor of 1 million further improvement. Silicon, molecular, quantum, bio, optical, and beyond human AI. And this would be IQs of 250 and above. Immersive multisensory VR holodecks. Ubiquitous multiphysics hyperspectral sensors, land, sea, air, and space combined. Micro and nano satellites and sensors. I think in a lot of ways this report too was lost in the shuffle because 9/11 happened so quickly thereafter. But he has here worldwide impacts of ongoing IT revolution upon society. Telecommuting, teleshopping, entertainment, travel, education, medicine, commerce, politics, and socialization. IT status. 10 to the 6th power improvements in computing since 1959. 10 to the 8th power further possible over the next 30 years. 10 to the 3rd provides better than human capabilities. 100 million telecommuters worldwide right now, expected to at least double within 15 years. India graduates 3 times more software engineers than the US. More software is written in Bangalore than in Southern California. IW effectively constitutes a 4th WMD, which is information warfare. And I would say here that he needs to add a 5th one, which are demographic bombs. That would be another one. But these are biochemical, nuclear, or radiological. In a section that he has on some IT predictions, he lists wearable and implantable on-person electronics, comms, computing, sensory augmentation, health monitoring, and brain stimulation. AI and beyond computing. Human brain characteristics and capabilities. 100 billion neurons, 100 trillion connections, 200 calculations per second, 200 million billion calculations per second. Excellent at parallel computing pattern recognition, poor at sequential thinking, operates via random tries. In machine capabilities, he lists by 2030, a PC has collective computing power of a town full of human minds. And even if his projection of 2030 isn't correct, perhaps you move that out to 2050 or 2060, it's still mind-boggling. U.S. Human Brain Project. Begun in the early 90s, funded by 16 organizations across 5 agencies, the NIH, NSF, DoD, NASA, and DOE. Neuroinformatics, intersection of neuroscience and informatics, is a exploding field. 10,000 individual presentations at an annual meeting of the Society for Neuroscience, from molecular geneticists to cognitive psychologists. Determining detailed neuroanatomy of the human brain, or the creation of a digital brain atlas. This is not gross anatomy that he's talking about. Use of IT to study the brain, use of brain info to aid IT and AI further developments. Next, he moves to the imagination engine, aka creativity machine or creative agent. Current AI best bet, not a rule-based or expert system. It generates new ideas and concepts via starving a trained neural net of meaningful inputs, forcing it to dream or cavitate and create new concepts on its own. An attendant neural net used to capture, record, evaluate, and report on these writings. And we've seen this coming out of Google with their systems that are able to defeat the greatest chess champions in the world. And in fact, other expert chess computers have been bested by them within only a few hours of them figuring out the rules and how to win these games. By around, he says, 2025, 40% of private and 15% of public colleges and universities are expected to be closed due to web-based competition. That actually might be sort of a good thing. The ultimate education approach is plug and play, which we've seen in Johnny Mnemonic and in The Matrix. Direct silicon or other such device connected to the brain, very rapid uploads, education in minutes instead of many years. Probable around 2025 societal changes. Much increased lifespan in the bio area. Solution to energy, water, and warming effects in the bio area. Far more global distribution of technology, education, economics, and wealth in the IT area. Tremendous increases in capability of automatic robotic everythings, IT, bio, and nano, resulting in reduced tensions associated with haves and have-nots and historical and religious issues. Also resulting in greatly increased individual destructive power, bioinformation warfare, and so on. And general societal disaffection, WRT machines, which is the Bayesian models. Major emerging law enforcement issues. Privacy, ubiquitous micro-nano sensors, IT and net crime, wide spectrum, biocrime, binary pathogens, genetics, protection of human electronic implants, protection of CONUS beyond terrorism, that's continental U.S., societal disaffection, upheaval caused by rapid technological changes, road air rage, psychosomatic illnesses, and withdrawal from society altogether. Of particular concern, uncontrolled or uncontrollable self-replication of brilliant robots in IT or nano-replicators in the nano field or rampant recombinant in the bio field. This would be like the gray goo problem, at least related to nanobots if they were to be, say, changed from using as their energy source extremely rare earth elements to common elements, where the entire planet would be gone, I think, in 2 or 3 days. Current competitive landscape, $400 billion per year in a trade deficit. I actually think it's well over $800 billion now. 32 other nations devote a larger percentage of their GDP to research in these fields. 5th in the number of R&D personnel and labor units. 3% savings rate versus 30% in Asia. 13th out of 30 in terms of student math and science scores. Biorevolution applications. Farm animals, as in pharmaceutical, drugs, and spare parts. Fast-growing plants on or near the sea surface and seawater irrigated plants for biomass energy, closed CO2 cycle. Polymer-growing plants. Spider genes in goats allow spider silk spinning from goat milk for biosteel, which is 3.5 times the strength of aramid fibers for armor. Binary bioweaponry, which was a dual item combination which activates. It's like you have one component and then you just add some other X unknown component in order to activate whatever the weapon is that's already inside of, say, everyone, if it's in your water or food supply. And you will note that links us back to both of the previous documents, Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars and the report from Iron Mountain. Examples, confluence of IT, bio, and nano. Brain of a sea lamprey inserted and connected to a body of a robotic fish, an initial form of cyborg. And choo-choo, he calls it a flesh plant-eating robot that hunts and biodigests natural foods to, quote, live off of the land. And there's something similar to this in the great show on Netflix called Black Mirror. It's in Season 4, Episode 5, titled Metalhead. He then goes on to talk about carbon nanotubes, the possibility of low-energy molecular petaflop computing, which I think today you can do 20 petaflops on the top computer in the world. Revolutionary power generation and storage opportunities, ultracapacitors, advanced fuel cells, HEDM, which stands for high energy density matter, which is massively explosive, solid H2 isomers, antimatter, etc. Room temperature, SCSMES, C nanotube storage of H2, offshore methane hydrate, blacklight power, LENR, which stands for low energy nuclear reactions, which some people pillory as cold fusion, but this is actually a slightly different concept. And he also mentions ZPE, which stands for 0 point energy. Free-form fabrication on the next page. Powder wire metallurgy using robotic magnetically steered electron beams to create accreting local melts, grow instead of cut. Some would call this, I guess, directed energy weapons or DEWs. No fasteners, no strong backs for the fasteners. Aluminum vortex combustor. Micro-powdered aluminum fed into a vortex combustor burns seawater, provides AIP with high energy density efficiency for inexpensive SS with near SSN perf. Transoceanic UUVs, which are unmanned underwater vehicles, would allow the enemy after next to affordably threaten continental United States via multitudinous inshore short time of flight pop-ups. And otherwise they come across the ocean undetected and then pop up just prior to an attack. How do you defend against that? So you see here, as you read into this, you see more and more he's actually talking about how do you put into place defensive measures against these things that potential possible enemies could use in the future against the United States. He's not proposing this anywhere that I've seen so far that, he wants this to actually happen to the American public. He offers a few samples of newer sensors or nano tags and smart dust, which can be sprayed in the air in order to track basically everyone and everything. Some sensor swarms, smart dust, cubic millimeter in size or less, combined sensors, comms, and power supply, floats in air currents, nanotags placed on everything and everywhere, which provide identification and status info on all things. Also, he mentions the possibility of co-opted insects. Some explosive smart dust opportunities. Optimal positioning of explosive dust or dust air explosives. Formation of explosive lenses, which creates breaks at strategic points. Infiltration of deeply buried other such targets. Of course, I think this will bring to mind 9/11 for a lot of people and the whole nanothermite and thermate debate and all this sort of stuff. Microdust weaponry. A mechanical analog to biomicron-sized mechanized dust, which is distributed as an aerosol and inhaled into the lungs. The dust then mechanically bores into lung tissue and executes various, quote, pathological missions. This is very disturbing. If that doesn't disturb you as a concept, I don't know what will. A wholly new class of weaponry, which, he says, is apparently currently still legal. Givens, the now to soon to develop. Gigabit data transfer rates, optical comms, petaflop computing. Of course, I said that's already taking place. Exceptional AI from bioinformatics and biomimetics. Wondrous, ubiquitous land, sea, air, space, multiphysics, hyperspectral sensor swarms, military, commercial, and scientific applications. Survival requires dispersion, size, reduction, and concealment. Robotic swarm technologies, primarily commercial and endemic worldwide. These would be drones, UAVs, UUVs, water drones, and insect drones. And not the co-opted pre-existing insects either. These would be manufactured insect drones that appear to be real but are actually not. Agreed upon assumptions, combat in 2025. Proliferation of TBMs, which are transferable belief models. IT, precision strike targeting, ubiquitous microsensors, camo, spoofing, robotics, biochem munitions. Then he lists beam weapons will become increasingly prevalent. And I just want to point out here that, I did say that I currently do believe the first two documents I covered are indeed hoaxes or frauds or forgeries or whatever else, but it's very bizarre that then this actually incontestably real document that we're going over right now, so many of the things that were in those two documents reappear in this real document. Very odd. He goes on to mention volumetric weaponry, EMPs, info, net, psi warfare, which he does not differentiate between, say, psychic warfare and psionic warfare, miniature brilliant sensor mine combos, fuel, air, dust, air, thermobarics, RF frequencies, chem, bio, anti-functionals, and anti-fauna, such as Agent Orange, but 100 times more powerful or 1,000 times more powerful, isomers, strained bond, energy release, carbon fibers, and blades, and various acoustical weapons, anti-personnel, MW, and RF weaponry, which would be, of course, radio frequency weaponry. And that takes us back into the beam weaponry and microwave weapons, heating and high power requirements, surface effects of these, brain interactions, low frequency modulations, effects of low power microwaves, U.S. Army, SRI, and Walter Reed, behavioral performance decrements, seizures, gross alteration in brain function itself, 30 to 100% increase in brain blood flow, which of course can cause aneurysms and strokes, lethality, interactions between low power microwaves and brain functions. Often, quote, fingerprintless bioarchipelago. This again links it back to silent weapons for quiet wars. Listen to these. Bacteriological, viruses, prions, parasites, fungi, carcinogens, toxins, hormones, and regulators of hormones, fatal to disabling, short to long time scales, anti-flora, fauna, and functionals, direct and undetectable binaries, those are the combination ones, natural and genomic attacks, and biohacking. Some interesting then-year biowarfare possibilities, which he's saying, I guess, around 2025 and beyond. Aflatoxin, a natural parts per billion carcinogen. Airborne varieties of Ebola, Lassa, and other such illnesses. Binary agents distributed via imported products, vitamins, clothing, food. These are the open free trade being used as a weapon. Genomically, individual societal targeted pathogens. Long-term fingerprintless campaign as opposed to shock and awe biowarfare campaigns. This means slow death, slow demise, demographic collapse even, as we're seeing happen in Japan right now. An existing biocalmative, VEE, Venezuelan equine encephalitis. It is an ideal bioweapons incapacitator agent, weaponized by the US and USSR in the 50s and 60s. It's easily transmitted via aerosol, highly infectious, low fatality rate, 1 to 5 day incubation period, but a 3-week recovery period. Tested on humans in Operation Whitecoat, and there is no treatment available for this. And then he moves on to a really disturbing section into what he has found is apparently considered to be legal methods of attack, which are microwaves and RF frequencies, anti-functionals and anti-personnel weaponry, chemical anti-functional weaponry, chemical psychological effects via sensory organs weaponry, such as smell and hearing, chemical personnel incapacitation weaponry, non-warfare, such as taking hostages and terrorism only, psi-war, acoustic weaponry, and mechanical microdust. Future non-nuclear explosives for volumetric weapons of mass effect, metastable interstitial composites, MICs, and cubanes, which are an order of 6 times the power of TNT, fuel, air, dust, air explosives, an order of 15 times TNT, strain bond energy release, SBERs, on the order of 100 times TNT, hafnium metastable isomers, an order of 1,000 to 100,000 times that of TNT, and atomic boron, carbon, and hydrogen. Next, he moves into HEDMs, which are high energy density materials, among which he mentions LENR, again, cold fusion, and then also antimatter weapons. He then moves into a section on combat-related issues, where he says, increasingly critical human limitations and downsides. Humans are large, heavy, tender, slow, physically and mentally, and require huge logistic trains in order to support, i.e. humans have rapidly decreasing to negative value added. And of course, you know that's true for anyone who's traveled anywhere for an extended period of time, or if you've been out in the wilderness at all, if you're in the military or a survivalist or anything like that, you know that that is true. That is why they will ultimately want to have a transition into cybernetics and robotics rather than humans out there. What is beyond robotic systems? Sensors, platforms, weapons, munitions, robotic and autonomous warfare capabilities. Computer capability will exist beyond teraflop to do AI or better, ? Required connectivity is a given. Competitor capabilities. Tempo sidelines the innate inadequacies of human interactions, education, conscious decision timelines. Little to no troops will be needed. It will be Acme warfare limited, as in on order warfare. Flat hierarchy, demise of the main in the chair. This would be referring to, say, distributed networks of control. High-level soft sciences, human aspects, boundary conditions, sociological, humanitarian, political, environmental, religious, psychological, economics, and so on. The extent and scale, projected effects, damages, and personnel attrition will be general to specific. And that would be some of the concerns, I guess, that were gotten into by Lewin in his report from Iron Mountain, which he did, I guess, in jest and whatnot as a cynical, comical, dark humor ploy. But you can actually see that sometimes these people really do think the way that he was parodying. Natural warfare. Sensors. Utilize in situ plants, animals, insects as sensor platforms, instruments to indicate presence, movement, and characteristics of the enemy. Very interesting part there. Weapons and munitions. Utilize animals, e.g. urban rats, insects as, quote, delivery systems, munitions, feeding, swarming, biting, poisoning. Utilize in situ explosive destructive capability, e.g. offshore methane hydrate explosions or the explosions of dams within, I guess, the continental U.S. is what he's referring to there. Example, then year, direct CONUS attack capabilities. 80% of continental U.S. population and infrastructure, he projects, will be within 50 miles of a coastline, making them extremely vulnerable to the pop-up attacks that he mentioned earlier. Inexpensive transoceanic underwater UUVs and UAVs and cruise attacks. And the final page that I'll be covering here, and this is really only slightly over half of the entire document, he says, concerning current farther-term U.S. defense strategic studies. And he says it's almost wholly dedicated to and concentrated on offensive operations. He's basically raising the question, why do we not consider the defensive possibilities for the things that are going to happen down the road? He says this is true across the board, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, OSD. He says it is wholly inadequate consideration of these defense considerations, defense of CONUS, especially from short time of flight inshore undersea attacks, defense of the offensive forces, especially in terms of the enemy after next capabilities, definitionization and responses thereto, defense of the logistics assets, especially out of theater contacts. The final two things I would like to cover in relation to this, one is a recent news article and another one is a different document that I found from 1996, which is very similar and related to the so-called NASA war document. This one is also a .mil document, which I will link below and you'll be able to access it and read it for yourself. And it is called Weather as a Force Multiplier, Owning the Weather in 2025. It is a research paper presented to the Air Force 2025 by a series of colonels and lieutenant colonels and majors. This was published in August of 1996, and it has been released to the public. It is around 50 pages in length, and a lot of people in the conspiracy circles link that to HARP. Okay, so the final piece here is a news article that I found on Zero Hedge, came out just a few days ago actually, called Army Starts Testing, quote, Iron Man-like exoskeleton for future hybrid wars. As discussed previously, this is by Tyler Durden, The Army's Training and Doctrine Command, or TRADOC, drafted a new strategy for how soldiers will operate, fight, and campaign successfully across multiple domains: space, cyberspace, air, land, maritime, against all enemies, Russia and China, in the 2025 to 2040 timeframe. Warrior Maven has confirmed that the Army is literally gearing up for decades of hybrid conflicts, and in doing so, testing and prototyping self-generating Iron Man-like soldier exoskeletons. These breakthrough suits are designed to transform the combat mission by supporting soldier movements, generating electricity, powering weapon systems, and substantially lowering the weight burden of what soldiers carry on the modern battlefield. And is even as advanced as that is, and as impressive as it looks and sounds, it still doesn't come anywhere close to the really, truly frightening over-the-horizon technology that is mentioned in the NASA War document, where he projects warfare at 2025 and beyond. But I just thought all three of those articles together are very interesting. All three documents, too, that I think are probably not real, although you can believe they are if you wish, that's fine. And the third document, which is, but also incorporates many of the concepts and themes that we found in the first two documents. So that'll be it for today. Please like, subscribe, share, and all that stuff. Thank you.